say when a baby is born, so is a mother. But while you are there to help your baby grow into the person he or she is meant to be, who is there to help you? Many women feel lost and alone when they become mothers, wondering, who am I now? Sometimes it feels like the transformation from woman to mother is as radical as a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly. Did you know that inside the chrysalis, the caterpillar literally turns into goop before it rearranges itself into a butterfly? This podcast is about the goop, what soul transformation looks like as you transition from being a woman to a mom, and all the transformations that continue to inform our motherhood experience. Your child's growth matters, but yours does too. I'm your host, Brittany Ming. Welcome to the Motherhood Metamorphosis. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. I'm your host, Brittany Ming, and today we're talking to Michelle K Umbehauer. Michelle studied journalism at Salle University in Philadelphia. She soon opted to become a full-time mom ×6, yet has never stopped with her love of writing. You can find her work on her review from home and Moms in Prayer International. She also wrote an encouraging book for moms of many entitled Got Your Hands Full, and most recently, the Marriage Workbook with her husband, Doug. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so happy to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me.
I love the title of your book. So the full title is Got Your Hands Full, What Strangers Say to Moms and Why You Shouldn't Listen. So when I saw that, I looked up your book on Amazon and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can probably totally relate to that because you're a mom of 6, I'm a mom of 5, and we've probably heard it all.
Mhm. Yes. I wrote the book when I was a mom of 5. And it also was pre-COVID, so I feel like people talk to each other more in public settings and strangers were more likely to approach you. But yeah, we've heard it all. And I think when it got to the point where I was hearing, oh, you got your hands full, like 6, 7 times a day, I was realizing other people must be dealing with this too. And, when you get stuck in those same old phrases every day, it's easy to get stuck in them, and just offering some encouragement and some other options there.
I know. Or you always want to have like the snappy comeback. Like we have twins, and so we'd always say, "Are they twins?" And be like, "Oh no, they're triplets. We left one of them at home." Like I don't know. We would just like we never said that to people like strangers, but we'd always like
Right.
come up with these funny quips at home. And I'm sure that you have those. You got your fans full. Oh, like oh no, this is only half my kids. I actually have
Right.
14. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
so you have a unique family, and I love hearing family stories. So can you tell us about your kids and how they came into your home and your family?
Sure. So I have 6 kids altogether, my husband and I. My oldest is 16, so we have a teenager now. She was actually an unexpected pregnancy. I was pregnant in college, so I think I learned a lot just about um, motherhood very early, but realizing also how amazing it is. So then out of that, we have our 13-year-old after that, and then 10, 9, 8, and our youngest is 4. And our youngest was actually adopted into our family. And so that was just a few years ago, 2020, during COVID, that we were able to adopt him. And that's been a whole new amazing journey also. So.
Yeah, so that's actually the topic that we're going to be talking about today is adoption, and specifically interracial adoption and having a child who is a different race from you. So can you just tell us your adoption story? And we were chatting a little bit beforehand when they asked you, would you be willing to adopt a child of any race? And just tell us that story and how that came about.
Sure. I mean, it's a long process, much more than we thought, but my husband and I really felt like we were called to this opportunity to adopt and bring a child who needed a home into our family. And so, in all of the paperwork, one of the just simple questions is, are you willing to adopt a child of any race? And, I kind of asked the social worker, like, why is this even on the form? Like, of course we are. Um, but I think realizing now just, that there's a lot of implications with that, and just things that I hadn't really thought of. I just was like, of course, absolutely. Um, and so, yeah, we were placed, I guess, about a year and a half after we originally started the process. We were placed with a beautiful baby boy who was born here in the United States. And he was just in need of a home and a family. So he was in the NICU for about a month. Like I said, this was all during COVID, so there was no like visitors allowed. Everything was shut down. Just knowing that alone was like breaking my heart. But he happened to be a Black boy from the Philadelphia area. And we said, absolutely, of course. And so we were able to bring him home when he was about a month old. And so, then all five of the siblings just fell in love with him immediately. And then we were a family of six
Yeah.
kids.
So when you saw that question, you were surprised by it and you thought, oh, of course. So what do you think is the first time you thought, oh, wow, this might have a bigger impact on my family or on my own growth than I originally thought when I first saw that question?
Sure. So, I mean, when we first brought him home, okay, the texture of his hair is a little different than our other babies that we were used to. Asking some of my friends with similar hair, how do I care for this? How do I, best treat his skin? And basically, they're like, he's a baby. This is all. It's pretty standard. Just relax. But then a few weeks after bringing him home, just a few weeks after, is when the George Floyd incident happened nationally, and now we have this racial tension all across our country. While, if you remember, we're simultaneously shut down in our own homes, so everyone's taking to social media, all sorts of outlets to just one way or another, kind of just shout their opinions and their stances there. And I just remember being so maybe in shock of just, oh wow, this Black son of ours, this is a whole other thing than we could ever have realized. And we realized very quickly just how ignorant we were, and I think that's hard for people to say, moms, women, especially to say. But ignorant just meaning not knowing, not understanding, and just really um, starting to just delve into that whole area of just Blackness and, you know, uh, just racial equality and compassion, really, that I hadn't really, admittedly, I hadn't really sought to understand before.
Yeah. What do you think your first steps were when you're like, I don't know enough and I need to know more to raise this child to be a man in this country? What were your first steps that you took to try to increase your compassion and increase your knowledge?
I think listening to other voices, and at the time, thankfully, I had people in my life who were willing to speak from um, from that Black voice that I hadn't really. Maybe they had tried to speak before, but I hadn't really heard it like I had now that I'm holding a Black son in my hands. And so I had just a really amazing, strong Black woman that I was blessed to have in my life. She was Reverend's wife from when I was in college, and reaching out to her and her being gracious to me. It's not their responsibility to educate this not knowing white lady, from rural New Jersey. Like, that's not. But she was really gracious to just speak truth and experience, and things that I had never really heard from her in our friendship before, and it was humbling. But I think just starting there and then just listening to other people, I read a couple books just from Black voices and Black authors on all sorts of things, adoption, but also just history and um, the church, all sorts of things that I just hadn't considered before, and just kind of being embarrassed that I hadn't considered these things before. Also embarrassed. I love reading, I love writing, and looking on my shelves, I didn't have Black voices and Black authors in my home. I had done I had listened to, maybe podcasts or Bible studies or things like that, but they weren't on my shelves. And here I am, we're a Black and white family now, and I don't have those voices on my bookshelf. That was, yeah, embarrassing, I guess is the word. And so just really starting to try and hear personal experience and voice that was different from my own was key.
Yeah. So one of the metaphors I love on the podcast is the metaphor of the goop. Like, dissolving into goop inside the chrysalis so you can become
Mhm.
something new. And I think embarrassment when you're an adult that you don't know something is even more acute than when you're a kid and you're like, okay, well, you're expected to not know everything, like you're learning. But as an adult, we think, okay, I'm ready to interact with the world. I'm ready for this adoption. I'm ready like to tackle all these things and then to realize I don't know so much. I can see that as a metaphor of like I am dissolving and I am becoming somebody new into this transformation of motherhood.
Yeah. Yeah, when we first connected about your podcast and I was able to see that goop, analogy, I actually had just picked up a monarch caterpillar on our milkweed and I put him in a little jar and I was watching him. And a couple days later, he's in his chrysalis. And I kept thinking about that the whole time, how they're not just like, a caterpillar in there and wings sprout
Chris-
out of it, right? But it's like, no, they're going back. They're like, unbecoming a caterpillar first to understand how to become this butterfly. And yeah, so I think in that same way, not that I can unbecome a royal rural white woman, because that's what I am, but unbecoming that understanding that I had to, really regrow and just totally understand a totally new perspective. And so, yeah, like you said, that has to kind of be dissolved first before something else can grow. And that's hard.
It is hard. So, other than you felt embarrassed, but as you started to learn more, what are some other emotions that you experienced as you're learning more and kind of observing what's going on in the culture in 2020 and 2021? Like, what are some other ways that you saw yourself growing and changing?
Mhm. Um, without making it about me, but I only have my experience, I guess. I mean, it was grief. It was like um, full blown loss grief. Um, guess, for my son also, that this is, his experience, this could be his experience in our country. And I really did not consider that. And I'll never forget, we have this convenience store near us, Philly, Jersey, called Wawa. And it's like our prized possession here, but it wouldn't make sense to most people. Um, but we live very close to our town's Wawa, and so my other son, who just turned 13, and at the time he was like a preteen, just starting to get like some responsibility, where we were letting him ride his bike or skateboard down to the Wawa and hang out, kind of looking like trouble, but just a normal, preteen kid. I never gave that a second thought. And
Mhm.
then just to have, after all this going on and hearing other people's voices and thinking, oh my gosh, this other son in front of me that I have now, if he were to have a hoodie and skateboard down to Wawa and hang out there and cause trouble, like a kid does and should, his experience might be entirely different,
Mhm.
in this town and in this country. And that blew my mind, and I did have to grieve that after I understood that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think it would be grief, and also there was a lot of hurt involved. I guess with the people around us, people in our family, friends, even some like church leaders. Just if you remember, people were just like saying absolutely anything that was coming to their mind on social media, especially. And we were all stuck in our house, and that's all we were kind of exposed to. And so here are, neighbors down the street from me, shouting things that if my son was grown and understood what you were saying, I can't trust you with my family anymore. You
Mhm.
know, same idea with people in our church, people we trusted with our children. Um, just the things that people were willing to let come out of their mouth. I mean, I guess it was on a computer screen, so it was easier. Um, yeah, it was hurtful, eye-opening, scary. Um, yeah, it was a lot of those things, but I guess things that, you know, Black Americans have been dealing with for a long time and I just hadn't seen before, unfortunately for me.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing when you were speaking. Like, you were going through this singular, like, oh my gosh, like huge experience. But Black families or people of color of any kind in our country have experienced racism and discrimination and hurtful comments from people or missed opportunities that they should have been afforded for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so
Sure.
I know that I am also still learning, though I think that you had kind of a baptism by fire in
Mhm.
like
There we go.
you're bringing this baby into your family out of love, but then it opened the door to this incredibly bright and stark experience that you hadn't ever realized was there. Kind of like the
Mhm.
other side of you're seeing just like another side of the coin or another dimension that you had never experienced. And I also am a white woman, and so I know that I can only listen and try to understand and be an advocate for people to have equality and justice and love and compassion. So tell us, so we talked about compassion beforehand. Tell us now like how your compassion has like grown and what that looks like in your family and in your community now.
I mean, I think just looking at people and people groups and just realizing that their experience is something entirely different than my own, you know? And compassion, um, the Greek word for compassion that's used in the Bible, um, actually like stems to the root word for womb, like a
Mm,
mother's womb. And that was always just so crazy to me. But I think when you think about compassion, it is that like same idea of like, you care so much like you're carrying a baby. You know
mm,
what I mean? And like, carrying a baby is not easy. It's uncomfortable. Um, it's a lot of work, but I think to be just willing to go there in your compassion and understanding, I think for our kids, we're in a mostly white school right now. And so for them, a lot of conversations just opened up with the older ones, especially of like, you need to understand that this, is what it is still, unfortunately, and this could happen. And what would you do if you were in this situation? And, how are you responsible to make sure that you're speaking up for your younger brother and you're, advocating for him and anyone, that's being unfairly treated or spoken of. And I think just those kinds of conversations with my husband, we had a lot of conversations where he said, there's plenty of times he's in the construction business and he's around talking, just, man talking a lot, where he admitted to just like nodding his head along a conversation because he's not a conflict type person, and he kind of had to really um like repent of all of those times where realizing that nodding along in a conversation is not that it ever was okay, but for the first time he realized that it's no longer okay because this is my son and these are humans and I can't nod along
mhm,
anymore. I think just those kinds of little realizations and changes. I was also, I had the opportunity, our school maybe a year or so after this, had like tension and talk and how to handle it in the school district. And they invited our family, knowing, where we were with our family and everything. And so I really appreciated that. We were able to have kind of roundtable discussion. And I was able to be really honest that I'm scared and fearful and you know, just to see my kid in an area where there's not a lot of kids that look like him. Can you assure me that you're gonna be advocating for him just as much as anyone else, if not more, and what was being done there? So that was really reassuring. Actually, there's plenty that's being done in our school, but there's always room for more, and just uh, trying to do all those types of things.
How I'm just curious about this from a
Sure.
perspective of adoption. I know that people who have adopted from other countries or other cultures maybe strive to have a family friend or somebody in their child's life that maybe looks like them or can be somebody who comes alongside your family to say, "Hey, I'm part of your life and I look like you and we're going to be part of that extended family to help you like your village? Do you have
Right.
somebody in your life or in your community that's part of that village for your son?
Sure. I mean, right now we have, so our elementary school principal is a Black woman. So she was really kind of leading the charge in that forum, and I appreciated that a lot. And when we were adopting, they asked us, the social workers asked us a similar question, and we were able to point to her and said, we know we have, the support and the understanding of this great principal that we've worked with for the last 10 plus years. So she's been really helpful and encouraging. Also, my my reverend's wife from back in college. We say that she acts like an auntie to him. She doesn't live nearby, but looking to the future, I hope when he's older that we can get together and those types of things. He's only 4,
Hmm.
so I think that as he gets older, that is definitely something that we're gonna have to be considering. And right now, we have to drive like 20 minutes to the nearest black barber to make sure he gets his fresh haircut the way that he's supposed to. Um, so I mean, like little things like that at age 4, but as he grows, it's going to be really important for us, and we're going to have to be constantly aware of that and make those adjustments for our family for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. I know that when you have large families, I'm sure you realize this, that you think, okay, you got your first child, and you're like, okay, I figure out what works with this child. And then your next one comes along, and you're like, oh my gosh, that did not work anymore. This sleep routine, or this discipline routine, or their favorite activities, that kid, it doesn't work with them anymore. And I'm sure you realize that even more having your little son that you've adopted is so different in his needs and his desires and his routines than the other children that you have in your family.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy. Right when you think you've had it figured out in your motherhood, you get thrown and you're like, oh no, what's this? This is totally new. But I think to be willing in motherhood in all senses to kind of take it day by day, take it season by season, school year by school year, and just see what's working for your family, what's not, and really be willing to adjust for each child. It might not be, all 6 choosing the same thing or doing the same way, but really to be considerate of each kid. I think that we're going to have to be really aware of that for sure as he gets older too.
Yeah. I know that one of my questions that I have written down, which I hardly ever follow them, but I say, tell me who you are on the other side of this story. And I know that you're not on the other side of the story, like you're in this story. But we talked about so many different emotions of growth, like embarrassment, grief, compassion, like all those are part of that journey of like understanding and becoming a new type of woman and a new type of mother to this child in your life. So who do you think you are now? What emotions are you dealing with now in 4 years into your motherhood experience?
Um, well, as a mom, some days you're like, I got this, I'm doing great. And some days you're like, oh my goodness, I still don't got this. But it goes up and down. But I think just having that greater understanding, greater compassion, um, so that when things get crazy, they were crazy during COVID, they're crazy again right now. When things get crazy and people get passionate and they have their side and then, the other side has theirs and everyone's shouting, you can really just take a step back and understand that everyone's coming from their own experiences and that's going to look totally different, and to really try to just have some kind of empathy for everyone in where they're at. I think it's helpful, even with your own kids, when they're freaking out on you or whatever, to just understand where they're coming from or what they're going through right now is not mine.
Hmm.
And, that's whatever it is, it's theirs. And I can give them grace and understanding where they're coming from some days.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. Hearing your story about the gas station and the hoodie and how you had a lot of grief with like this might not be my son's experience. I know that there can be, I had it reminded me of my son, one of my sons is autistic. And so sometimes when I think about his future at different stages in his growing up, there was a lot of grief when I thought about his future. I didn't know if he would be able to live on his own. I didn't know, are we going to get to a place in development where he'll be able to drive? do these milestones that you think will happen automatically when you have a child. Like they're going to meet X, Y, and Z, and then they're going to graduate and they're going to have a job and all these things. And at times for us, it was might look really different, or I don't know if this will happen. And there was a type of grief in that. But I know if I focused way too far in the future, then my grief was going to take over from what was actually happening in front of me, which was the little
Right.
growth and the relationship that we already had. And so focusing on the moment has helped me just to appreciate the journey more instead of
Mhm.
worrying so much about the future. And he just got his driver's license
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
he's going to graduate with his peers, and we're talking about higher education for him. And so all of those things that we thought this may not happen or may not ever happen, we're like, yeah, I think they're going to happen. And maybe they'll look different from somebody who is neurotypical. That's fine. Like, this is this
Mhm.
child's journey. So that
Right.
reminded me of that. You had the grief about the potential future, and things could be really hard for your child being Black in a primarily white community. And I know that sometimes for me, pulling back has helped me not be so fearful.
Yeah, definitely. I think in motherhood, especially, just that moment by moment focus and not letting your brain go, too far down the road. It's super helpful. So yeah.
What would you tell another woman who is considering adoption of a child who's a different race from their biological family?
I would say to think about it and also really don't think about it. You know what I mean? I think that, our family's approach where we didn't give it a second thought, it was, of course, should be the heart behind it. But I think to not disregard the mind and the knowledge behind it, and to really be willing to just welcome a whole new area of understanding for yourself, and whether that looks like cultural things or historical things, just being ready to dive into a whole new experience that wasn't yours before, um, with the help of some of the people that I mentioned. Our family celebrates Kwanzaa now after Christmas. And so, it's a African American holiday. And every year after Christmas, we've been celebrating it with, feasts and understanding these values and principles that are important to the Black community in our country. And the rest of the kids, they just absolutely love it. And every year at Christmas time, they come home with their like holiday projects, like, during the holidays, my family and our kids just want to talk about Kwanzaa now. And I'm like, we do celebrate Christmas also. So the
No,
whole
Kwanzaa
family,
only. Kwanzaa is the big deal.
I just always think about like, their teacher's faces like, oh, really? Did you like give them any background information about our family? But just to get the whole family involved in understanding and culture and history, and just thinking from the perspective of their new sibling, I think is super important and fun.
And fun because they have so much joy from that now.
Yeah,
And
they really.
it's brought you life and
Mhm.
a wonderful, wonderful new sibling and precious brother for all of them.
Exactly.
To end our time, I like to ask just a fun question. So, what is one thing you're doing to enjoy your life this week?
This week, tomorrow, I get together, I guess it's about every other week, with a group of women. They call it Mom Life. And we have breakfast and we talk and just discuss all this kind of mom stuff, that a lot of times you feel like you're the only one going through. So it's starting back for the first time this season tomorrow. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. I've been like kind of holding on, like, only 2 more weeks, only one more week tomorrow. Just to have that time with other moms has been beneficial for me throughout all of my mothering. It's really invaluable. So yeah,
Yeah,
can't
I
wait.
think that social time is invaluable. You're like, I actually feel like a real person again. Not like my
Exactly.
brains are falling out. They're like, scoop my brains back in during the
I know.
conversation.
Yeah, how do I have a conversation again? Oh, that's right.
Yes, I'm actually a full human adult.
Yes, it is very
That's great. I
nice.
hope you have a wonderful time and you have a great breakfast too.
Thank you so much.
Where can we find you online?
My website is michellekumbehauer.com. And there you can see information about my books, speaking, and you can get in touch there.
Sounds good. I will make sure to share your website in the show notes and links to your books as well. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Thanks for coming on, Michelle. I really, really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Motherhood Metamorphosis. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Next, tell your friends. Podcasts are a slow growth type of social media, so promo works best when it's from person to person. If you know another mom who's in the goop right now, send her a text of encouragement and the link to the episode that is speaking to your heart right now. If you have a story about your own matrescence, the physical, emotional, hormonal, and social transition that occurs when someone becomes a mother, please leave a comment below. I want this channel to be a place where women can build community about the challenges and joys of their own motherhood metamorphosis. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope it encouraged you and gave you some good food for thought. If you ever have any questions, comments, or you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can email me at brittanyaming@gmail.com.